The freezing air tore at Jennifer's face as she dropped through the sky like a stone. Above her, the helicopter grew smaller and smaller. Through the open door, she could still see him, her husband Michael, the man she had trusted with her life. But his face showed no panic, no horror, just a cold, empty smile. This wasn't an accident. Michael had just pushed his own wife out of a helicopter, and he thought she was about to die. 10 seconds earlier, everything had seemed perfect. Jennifer Chen had been leaning out of the helicopter, staring down at the mountains of Colorado below. The rocky peaks looked so small from up here, so peaceful. "Honey, look at that valley down there," Michael had shouted over the noise of the spinning blades. "Isn't it beautiful?" Jennifer had smiled and pressed closer to the window. This helicopter ride was Michael's gift for their 5th anniversary. He worked long hours at Pacific Trust Insurance, where he was a senior claims investigator. Romance wasn't really his thing anymore, so this surprise had meant everything to her. "Everything looks like toys from up here," she had said, laughing. That's when she felt his hands on her back. Not gentle, not loving, hard and deliberate. The safety harness that should have been locked tight around her waist was loose, too loose. She realized it in that split second. The door that should have been sealed shut was already open. "Michael, what are you—" But the wind swallowed her words as his hands shoved hard against her shoulders. And then she was falling. For the first few seconds, Jennifer's brain refused to accept what was happening. This had to be a mistake, some terrible accident. Michael wouldn't do this. He couldn't. They'd been married for 5 years. They'd built a life together. But as the ground rushed up toward her, fragments of the past 6 months flashed through her mind like a slideshow. Michael's sudden obsession with life insurance, how he'd insisted they both needed bigger policies. Just to protect each other, he'd said. The late nights at work, more and more of them. That perfume smell on his shirts, a sweet flowery scent that wasn't hers. The credit card statements she'd found by accident. Expensive dinners at restaurants they'd never been to together. Hotel charges in cities where he'd claimed to be working alone. The ground was coming fast now. Jennifer closed her eyes and thought about her childhood in Portland, Oregon, about her grandmother who'd raised her after her parents died in a car crash when she was 7, about her job as an emergency room nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, about all the patients she'd saved, all the lives she'd touched. She thought about the business management degree she'd been working on at night school, the career she'd put on hold when she married Michael because he needed support while he finished his MBA. The ground was maybe 3 seconds away now. Jennifer Chen prepared to die. But death didn't come. Instead, she crashed into the thick branches of a massive pine tree. Pain exploded through her body as the branches broke her fall. Each impact slowed her down. Her left arm twisted at a horrible angle, and she heard the snap of breaking bone. Her ribs cracked as she slammed into a thick branch. Smaller branches tore at her face and arms, leaving deep cuts that bled instantly. But she was slowing down. The tree was saving her life. She hit the ground hard in a pile of dead pine needles at the base of the tree. Every bone in her body screamed with pain. She tasted blood in her mouth, her vision blurred. But she was alive. Above her, she could hear the helicopter circling, the sound of the blades cutting through the air. He was checking to make sure she was dead.
Disappointment. He had been expecting to find her dead. Instead, she was very much alive, and that was clearly not part of his plan. Michael took Jennifer's hand in his, and she had to fight every instinct not to pull away. This was the same hand that had pushed her to her death. But if she wanted to survive and make him pay, she would have to be smarter than him. She would have to become someone new, someone he would never see coming. And her transformation was about to begin.
"Thank God you're okay," Michael said, moving to Jennifer's bedside. He took her good hand in both of his. When I saw you fall from that helicopter, I thought I'd lost you forever." His hands felt cold against her skin, like touching a corpse. These were the same hands that had pushed her out of the helicopter, the same hands that had loosened her safety harness while she wasn't looking. Jennifer had to use every ounce of willpower not to rip her hand away. "I don't remember much," she lied, keeping her voice weak and confused. "Just falling, and then waking up here. The nurse said there was some kind of mechanical problem with the helicopter." "That's what the investigators think," Michael said smoothly. His voice was calm, practiced. "The pilot is still unconscious, so we don't know for sure what happened. But the important thing is that you're alive and you're going to be okay." They talked for a few more minutes. Michael played the role of the devoted husband perfectly. He told her how he'd been beside himself with worry, how he'd barely left the hospital since she was brought in, how he'd called all their friends and family to let them know about the accident. Then he mentioned something that made Jennifer's blood freeze. "I already contacted Pacific Trust about the accident, our insurance company, just to make sure all your medical bills will be covered. They said they'd handle everything." Of course he had. He was already setting up his claim when she died. After Michael left, Jennifer lay in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't stay here much longer. As soon as she was discharged, she would be vulnerable. Michael could easily stage another accident, a fall down the stairs, a car crash, anything that would look like complications from her injuries. She needed help, and she knew exactly who to call. Her best friend from nursing school, Rebecca Park. They'd studied together, worked night shifts together, survived their first year in the ER together. Rebecca had always been suspicious of Michael. She'd warned Jennifer that something seemed off about him, that he was too controlling, too secretive. Jennifer had defended him back then, called Rebecca paranoid. She wished she'd listened. Rebecca had left nursing 5 years ago to become a private investigator in Denver. She specialized in helping women escape dangerous situations. The next morning, Jennifer asked Gloria for a favor. "I need to make a phone call," she said quietly, "but I don't want my husband to know about it. Can you help me?" Gloria looked concerned. "Is everything okay, honey? You seem troubled." "I just need to call an old friend, someone who can help me remember some things about the accident. I'm still so confused." Gloria nodded and brought her a phone. When she was alone, Jennifer dialed the number she'd memorized years ago. "Rebecca, it's Jennifer. I need your help, and I need you to trust me. Something terrible has happened. I think Michael tried to kill me." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Rebecca's voice, sharp and clear. "Tell me everything, right now." Rebecca arrived at the hospital the next day, disguised as a visiting nurse from the physical therapy department. She was a tall Korean-American woman with sharp features and an even sharper mind, qualities that made her an excellent investigator. "I've been doing some digging since you called," Rebecca said quietly, pretending to check Jennifer's reflexes. "And girl, you're not gonna like what I found." She handed Jennifer a folder, hidden inside a medical chart. "Michael took out a $2 million life insurance policy on you 6 months ago. He's been making the payments from a separate bank account you don't know about, an account at a different bank." Jennifer's heart sank. Even though she'd expected this, seeing the proof in black and white made it real. It made it hurt worse than all her physical injuries combined. "There's more," Rebecca continued, her voice low. "He's been having an affair with someone at his office. Her name is Ashley Morgan. She works as his administrative assistant. I have photos of them together. Hotels, restaurants, even your house when you were working night shifts at the hospital." Rebecca pulled out a small stack of photographs. Jennifer felt like she'd been pushed out of the helicopter all over again. There was Michael, the man she loved and trusted, kissing another woman. A blonde woman, younger than Jennifer, with perfect hair and expensive clothes. In the photos, Michael looked happier than Jennifer had seen him in years. "How long?" Jennifer asked, her voice barely a whisper. "At least 8 months, maybe longer," Rebecca said. I talked to some people at Pacific Trust. The affair is pretty much an open secret there. Everyone knows, except you. Jennifer felt tears burning her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough over Michael Chen. Now it was time for action. I need you to help me disappear, Jennifer said firmly. I want Michael to think I died from my injuries. Let him feel safe. Let him think he got away with it. And then I'm going to destroy him. Rebecca smiled grimly. I was hoping you'd say that. I've already started working on it. I have a contact who can help us fake your death.
Rebecca's contacts, a woman who had her own reasons for helping victims of domestic violence escape their abusers. From her hiding place in the hospital's basement, Jennifer watched through a small window as Michael arrived to identify her body. He played his part perfectly. He collapsed in apparent grief when told that his wife had died during the night. The tears looked real. The devastation seemed genuine. If Jennifer hadn't known better, she might have believed his performance herself. Rebecca had arranged everything. Within hours of the official death, Jennifer was smuggled out of the hospital in a laundry cart. A car was waiting to take her to a safe house across town, where she would stay until after the funeral. The funeral was held 3 days later at Mountain View Cemetery in Boulder, Colorado. From her position in a car parked across the street, Jennifer watched as Michael stood beside her empty casket, accepting condolences from friends and co-workers. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit. He had managed to look appropriately devastated. But Jennifer noticed something else. Ashley was there, standing in the back of the crowd. She wasn't sitting with family or accepting condolences as Michael's girlfriend. She was trying to be inconspicuous. But Jennifer could see the way Ashley watched Michael, the way her eyes followed his every movement. After the service, Jennifer followed Michael home, to the house they had shared for 5 years. Through the window, she watched him pour himself a drink and sit in his favorite chair. For exactly 10 minutes, he sat there with his head in his hands, looking like a man destroyed by grief. Then Ashley arrived. Jennifer watched in disgust as Michael's mourning mask slipped away completely. He opened the door with a smile, pulled Ashley into his arms, kissed her passionately. They were celebrating. Her husband was celebrating her death. Jennifer had planted a small listening device near the window earlier. Now she sat in her car with headphones on, recording every word. I can't believe it actually worked, Ashley said as they moved to the living room. I was so scared something would go wrong. I told you it would be fine, Michael replied confidently. The pilot didn't see anything, and even if he had, who's going to believe I pushed my own wife out of a helicopter? It was the perfect accident. When do we get the money? Ashley asked. I filed the insurance claim yesterday. They said it should be processed within 30 days, maybe a little longer given the circumstances. But $2 million, baby. We're going to be rich. Jennifer's hands clenched into fists as she listened to them discuss her death like it was a business transaction. But she forced herself to keep listening. She needed to know everything. So now what? Ashley asked. Do we wait a while before we start dating publicly? We'll give it a few months, make it look like we found comfort in each other during our grief. You were her friend, after all. Ashley laughed, a cruel, cold sound. I was never her friend. I couldn't stand her. She was so good, so perfect, always volunteering at the hospital, always putting others first. Made me sick. Well, she's gone now, and soon we'll have enough money to start our new life together. I'm thinking somewhere warm, maybe Arizona or Southern California. We can start fresh. Jennifer had heard enough. She slipped away from the window and returned to her car. Michael and Ashley thought they had won, but their victory celebration was premature. Their world was about to come crashing down, and Victoria, would be the one holding the hammer. Victoria Cross had money, a new identity, and a burning desire for revenge. But she needed more than that. She needed to become someone Michael would never recognize,
someone powerful enough to infiltrate his life and destroy it from the inside. Her transformation was about to begin, and when she was finished, she would be more dangerous than Michael could ever imagine.
Over the next 6 weeks, Jennifer Chen disappeared completely. Victoria Cross emerged in her place. Rebecca had found her an apartment in an upscale neighborhood in downtown Denver. It was in a modern, high-rise building with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the Rocky Mountains, nothing like the cozy suburban house she'd shared with Michael. The apartment was furnished with expensive, contemporary furniture. Everything was sleek and sophisticated. This was the home of a successful businesswoman, not a nurse working night shifts. But the real transformation went much deeper than just a new address. Victoria hired a personal trainer to help her regain her strength after the accident. Her broken ribs had healed, her arm was out of the cast, the cuts on her face had faded to thin scars that could be covered with makeup. She worked out every day, running, strength training, yoga, not just to heal, but to become stronger than she'd ever been before. She bought an entirely new wardrobe, expensive business suits, designer dresses, high-end shoes and accessories, everything carefully chosen to project power and confidence. She had her hair cut and styled in a completely different way. Jennifer had worn her dark hair long and simple, usually pulled back in a ponytail for work. Victoria wore hers in a sleek bob that framed her face perfectly. She even changed her glasses to contact lenses and learned to apply makeup like a professional. When she looked in the mirror now, she barely recognized herself, and that was exactly the point. But the most important part of Victoria's transformation wasn't physical, it was mental. She spent her days learning everything she could about Michael's life and work. She studied Pacific Trust Insurance until she knew more about their business than most of their employees. She researched Michael's colleagues, his clients, his daily routines, his habits and patterns. She even learned about his hobbies and interests, things she'd never paid attention to during their marriage. Rebecca provided constant updates on Michael's activities. He was still seeing Ashley. They were being more careful now, waiting a respectful amount of time before going public with their relationship, but they were still together, still celebrating their success. The insurance company was processing Michael's claim. $2 million would be deposited into his account within the next few weeks. Everything was going according to his plan. But Victoria was building her own plan, and it was much more sophisticated than anything Michael could imagine. She studied business strategy and corporate finance. She read books on negotiation and persuasion. She took online courses in investment and acquisitions. She even hired a business consultant named Margaret Torres, a retired executive who had built and sold 3 companies during her career. "I want to learn how to buy a company, a small to medium-sized business, something in the insurance industry," Victoria told Margaret during their first meeting. "That's ambitious. What's your background?" "Healthcare management," Victoria lied smoothly, using the degree she'd been working on before Michael tried to kill her. "But I've always been interested in diversifying. Insurance seems like a stable industry with good returns." Over the next month, Margaret taught Victoria everything she needed to know about business acquisitions, company valuations, and strategic planning. Victoria was a quick learner, and she had something that most business students didn't have: pure motivation. Victoria dug deep into Pacific Trust Insurance's background. The company had been founded 30 years ago by James Harrison, who is now in his late 60s and looking to retire. He had no children interested in taking over the business. The company was profitable, but not growing. They needed fresh capital and new leadership to expand into new markets. In other words, they were ripe for acquisition. Victoria also discovered more details about Michael's embezzlement. He'd been stealing from the company for nearly 2 years, not just small amounts from petty cash, but systematically manipulating insurance settlements and pocketing money that should have gone to clients. The total amount was close to $200,000. But here's what made it even worse.
Ashley had been helping him. She'd been falsifying documents and covering his tracks. They'd been stealing from the company together while planning to murder Jennifer for her insurance money. Victoria made copies of all the evidence. She stored it in multiple secure locations, both physical and digital. She wasn't ready to expose Michael yet. First, she wanted to insert herself into his life, gain his trust, watch him up close, and then, when he felt most secure, she would destroy everything. 6 weeks after her death, Victoria was ready. She had built a new life, created a new identity, armed herself with knowledge and resources. Now it was time to begin her revenge. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. She would approach Pacific Trust Insurance as a potential investor, someone interested in acquiring the company when Mr. Harrison decided to retire. She would gain access to the company, learn about Michael's embezzlement from the inside, document everything, and then she would destroy him, professionally, financially, completely. But first, she wanted to see him again. She wanted to look into his eyes and confirm that there was no guilt there, no remorse, no humanity. She chose a restaurant in downtown Denver where Michael often took clients for lunch. It was called the Sterling Room, an upscale place with white tablecloths and expensive wine. Victoria made a reservation for the same time she knew Michael would be there, and then she waited. When Michael walked into the Sterling Room with a potential client, Victoria felt her heart rate spike. He looked good, rested, happy, prosperous. The stress lines that were around his eyes during their marriage were gone. Killing his wife apparently had agreed with him. Victoria watched him throughout his lunch meeting. She noted the way he laughed, the way he gestured confidently, the smooth way he spoke. This was not a man haunted by guilt. This was a man who had gotten exactly what he wanted. When Michael excused himself to use the restroom, Victoria made her move. She walked past his table, deliberately dropping her designer purse near his chair, her wallet, phone, and other items scattered across the floor. When Michael returned, she was crouched down, collecting her belongings. "Here, let me help you with that," Michael said automatically, kneeling down to help her gather her things. For a moment, they were face to face, less than 2 feet apart. Victoria looked directly into his eyes, searching for any sign of recognition. But Michael saw no one but a beautiful, well-dressed stranger who needed assistance. He had no idea he was looking at his dead wife. "Thank you so much," Victoria said with a warm smile. "I'm so clumsy sometimes. These new heels are killing me." "No problem at all," Michael said, flashing his charming smile. Beautiful women shouldn't have to pick up their own things. It was a line he'd used before, on Jennifer years ago when they first met. Hearing it again made Victoria's stomach turn, but she kept smiling. "I'm Victoria Cross," Victoria said, extending her hand. "Michael Chen," he replied, shaking her hand. His grip was firm, confident. "It's nice to meet you, Victoria. The pleasure is all mine." And with those simple words, the game began. Michael had no idea that his victim had just introduced herself, and she was coming for everything he held dear.
Victoria didn't push for more conversation that day. She knew better than to seem too interested. Instead, she let Michael return to his lunch meeting while she finished her own meal at a nearby table. But she made sure he noticed her. She laughed at the right moments. She carried herself with confidence. She projected success and sophistication. And she caught him glancing at her several times during his meeting. Perfect. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria orchestrated 3 more accidental encounters with Michael. Once at a coffee shop near his office. She was reading a Wall Street Journal when he walked in. Once at a business networking event that Rebecca had discovered Michael would be attending, and once at a charity fundraiser for the Children's Hospital where Jennifer used to volunteer. Each time, their conversations grew a little longer, a little more personal. Michael was clearly attracted to her, but more than that, he was intrigued. Victoria Cross was sophisticated, wealthy, successful, everything he wanted in a woman. And she seemed interested in him. "You know, I keep running into you," Michael said at the charity event, walking up to her with 2 glasses of champagne. "It's starting to feel like fate." Victoria accepted the champagne and smiled. Denver is a smaller city than people think, especially in the business community. "What do you do?" Michael asked. "I don't think I've ever asked." "I'm an investor," Victoria said. "I buy undervalued companies, help them grow, and sometimes sell them for profit. I'm currently looking at opportunities in the insurance sector." Michael's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? That's my field. I'm a senior claims investigator at Pacific Trust Insurance." "Pacific Trust," Victoria said, as if considering the name. "I've heard of them. James Harrison's company, right?" "That's right. Do you know James?" "Not personally," Victoria said, "but I've been researching insurance companies in the region. Pacific Trust has a solid reputation. I've heard Mr. Harrison might be looking to retire soon." She watched Michael's face carefully as she said this. She could see the calculations happening behind his eyes, the possibilities. If Victoria Cross was a wealthy investor looking to buy an insurance company and she was interested in him, that could be very advantageous. "We should have lunch sometime," Michael said. "I could tell you more about the company, give you some insider perspective." "I'd like that," Victoria said. "Let me give you my card." She handed him a business card that Rebecca had designed. It was elegant and professional, with her new name and contact information. Victoria Cross, Strategic Investments and Acquisitions. Michael studied the card, then looked back at her with renewed interest. "I'll call you this week," he promised. "I'll look forward to it," Victoria said. As she walked away, Victoria allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. Phase 1 was complete. She had successfully inserted herself into Michael's orbit. He was attracted to her, interested in her, and he had no idea who she really was. Now the real work would begin. Michael had taken the bait. He was interested in Victoria Cross, the wealthy investor who could advance his career and his bank account. He had no idea he was being hunted by the woman he'd tried to murder. Victoria was about to enter Pacific Trust Insurance. She would get close to Michael, learn his secrets, document his crimes, and then she would spring the trap that would destroy him forever.
Michael called Victoria 3 days later. "I was wondering if you'd like to have lunch this Friday," he said. "I could tell you more about Pacific Trust Insurance, maybe give you some insights that might help with your investment research." "That sounds perfect," Victoria said, keeping her voice professionally friendly. "Do you have a place in mind?" "There's a great Italian place downtown, Lombardi's. Ever been there?" Victoria's breath caught for just a second. Lombardi's was where Michael had taken her on their first date 7 years ago. But she recovered instantly. "I haven't, actually. I'd love to try it." "Great. Friday at noon?" "I'll be there." Victoria hung up and sat quietly for a moment. Michael was taking his potential new business contact to the same restaurant where he'd once courted his wife, the same restaurant where he'd told Jennifer he loved her for the first time. He really had no shame at all. The lunch meeting, 37:30 to 40. Friday arrived, and Victoria dressed carefully for the meeting. She chose a navy blue business suit with a silk cream blouse, pearl earrings. Her hair was styled perfectly, and her makeup was flawless but subtle. She looked like someone who belonged in boardrooms and investment meetings. When she arrived at Lombardi's, Michael was already there, waiting at a table by the window. The same table where they'd sat on their first date. Victoria pushed down the wave of anger and sadness and sat down with a professional smile. "Thank you for meeting with me," she said. "I'm always interested in learning more about potential investment opportunities." They ordered lunch, and Michael launched into his sales pitch about Pacific Trust Insurance. He was good at this,
Articulate and knowledgeable, he explained the company's market position, their client base, their growth potential. Victoria listened carefully, asking intelligent questions, taking mental notes. But she was also watching him, studying him, looking for any crack in his facade, any sign that he was haunted by what he'd done. She found nothing. Michael was completely comfortable, confident. He showed no guilt whatsoever. The company's solid, but it needs fresh capital and vision to grow. Mr. Harrison is getting older, and he's ready to step back. The right investor could turn Pacific Trust into something really special. "And where would you fit into that future?" Victoria asked. Michael smiled. "Well, I'd hope that any new owner would recognize the value of experienced employees. I've been with the company for 7 years. I know the business inside and out." Victoria nodded thoughtfully. "Experience is certainly valuable, though I imagine any serious investor would want to do a complete audit first. Look at all the books, make sure everything is in order." She watched for a reaction. There it was, just a flicker, a brief moment of tension around his eyes. "Of course," Michael said smoothly. "That's standard practice. I'm very thorough when I evaluate potential acquisitions. I like to understand every aspect of a business, the operations, the finances, the people. I don't like surprises." "That's smart," Michael said, but Victoria could see he was slightly uncomfortable now. "Good. Let him worry a little." The research deepens, 40 to 42. After lunch, Victoria and Michael exchanged contact information and agreed to stay in touch. "I'm definitely interested in learning more about Pacific Trust," Victoria said, as they parted ways. "Would it be possible for me to meet with Mr. Harrison? If I'm serious about investing, I'd want to talk to him directly." "I could probably arrange that. Let me talk to him and see what I can set up." "Perfect. I appreciate your help with this, Michael." "My pleasure. And Victoria, maybe next time we could have dinner instead of lunch, somewhere nice, talk about more than just business." There it was, the move she had been expecting. Michael was attracted to Victoria Cross, and he was already thinking about how he could benefit from a relationship with a wealthy investor. It was exactly what Victoria counted on. "Let's see how the business side develops first," she said with a smile. "I like to keep things professional until I know someone better." "Smart policy," Michael agreed. "I respect that." As Victoria walked to her car, she called Rebecca. "He took the bait. He's going to arrange a meeting with Harrison. I'm getting inside Pacific Trust." "Be careful," Rebecca warned. "You're playing a dangerous game." "I know," Victoria said, "but it's the only way to get enough evidence to destroy him completely." Over the next week, Victoria prepared for her meeting with James Harrison. She reviewed all of Rebecca's research on the company. She studied their financial reports. She learned about their competitors and market position. She also had Rebecca do deeper research into Michael's embezzlement. And what they found was even worse than they had initially thought. Michael hadn't just been
Now I'm going to destroy his. The day of Victoria's full tour of Pacific Trust Insurance arrived. She was dressed in her most professional outfit, her hair perfect, her confidence at its peak. Mr. Harrison greeted her personally and began introducing her to his staff. She met the accounting manager, a nervous man named Robert, who seemed uncomfortable with the idea of an outside investor. She met the customer service supervisor, a friendly woman named Diana, who was excited about potential growth opportunities. She met the IT director, a young tech-savvy guy named Kevin, who showed her their computer systems and security protocols. And then they arrived at Michael's office. "And this is our senior claims adjuster, Michael Chen," Mr. Harrison said. "Michael, I'd like you to meet Victoria Cross officially. She's the investor I told you about." Michael looked up from his desk, and for just a moment, Victoria saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition?
No, not quite, but something. A sense that he'd seen her before, that she seemed familiar somehow. But then his professional smile slid into place. "Mrs. Cross, it's good to see you again," he said, standing to shake her hand. "I'm glad you're seriously considering investing in our company. Please, call me Victoria. And yes, I'm very impressed with what I've seen so far. Mr. Harrison has built something special here." For the next hour, Michael walked Victoria through the claims department. He explained their processes, showed her case files, and demonstrated how they investigated and processed claims. He was good at his job, Victoria had to give him that. But she was also watching his computer screen, noting which files he accessed, seeing which programs he used, and she noticed something interesting. When Mr. Harrison stepped out to take a phone call, Michael quickly minimized a spreadsheet he'd been working on. But not quickly enough. Victoria had caught a glimpse. It was a financial spreadsheet that didn't look like official company business. Personal records, tracking money that was coming from somewhere it shouldn't be. Evidence of his embezzlement. "You've built an efficient system here," Victoria said. "I imagine handling claims requires a lot of attention to detail." "It does," Michael agreed. "You have to be very careful. One mistake can cost the company thousands of dollars, or worse, damage our reputation with clients." Victoria nodded. "I imagine detecting fraud is a big part of your job, people trying to cheat the system." "It happens more than you'd think. Some people see insurance companies as easy targets. They think they can file false claims and get away with it." The irony was almost too much for Victoria to bear. Michael was lecturing her about insurance fraud while he himself was stealing from his own company. "I'm sure the right auditing procedures would catch that kind of thing," Victoria said carefully. "Regular reviews of settlement payments, verification of documentation, that sort of thing." She watched Michael's face carefully. There it was again, that brief flicker of discomfort. "Of course, we have internal controls, though there's always room for improvement." After the tour concluded, Victoria met privately with Mr. Harrison in his office. "I'm ready to move forward. I'd like to purchase a 30% stake in Pacific Trust Insurance, with an option to acquire the remaining 70% within 2 years. Mr. Harrison looked surprised. "That's quite a commitment. Are you sure you don't need more time to consider?" "I've done my research. Your company has strong fundamentals and excellent potential. With proper investment and management, I believe we can grow significantly. There is one condition. I'll need an office here in the building, and I'll want full access to all company records as a major shareholder. I'm a very hands-on investor." Mr. Harrison nodded slowly. "That's reasonable. I appreciate an investor who wants to be involved." They shook hands. The deal was done. Victoria Cross now owned 30% of Pacific Trust Insurance, and she had legitimate access to every file in the building, including all the evidence she needed to destroy Michael. Victoria was inside. She had an office down the hall from Michael. She had access to all the company's files, and she was about to start the most dangerous phase of her plan. She would get close to Michael, win his trust, and while he was falling for the wealthy investor who could advance his career, she would be documenting every crime he'd ever committed. Michael thought he was hunting a business opportunity. He had no idea he was the prey. Victoria's investment in Pacific Trust Insurance was approved within 2 weeks. She purchased a 30% stake in the company, making her the second largest shareholder after Mr. Harrison himself. The deal gave her an office in the building and legitimate access to all company files and records. Her office was strategically located down the hall from Michael's, close enough to observe his comings and goings, close enough to establish a professional relationship, close enough to destroy him.
Victoria arrived early and stayed late every day. She established herself as a dedicated investor who was hands-on with her business ventures. "I like to understand every aspect of my investments," she explained to Mr. Harrison. "The devil is in the details, as they say." Mr. Harrison appreciated her involvement. "It's refreshing to work with an investor who cares about more than just profit margins," he said. But Victoria's real purpose had nothing to do with legitimate business interests. She was hunting, and Michael Chen was her prey. Michael seemed both intrigued and unsettled by Victoria's presence. She caught him staring at her during meetings. He often found excuses to stop by her office. "Have we met somewhere before? I mean, besides the restaurant. You seem so familiar." Victoria looked up from her computer, her expression carefully neutral. "I don't think so. I have one of those faces, I suppose. People often think they know me." "Maybe," Michael said, but he didn't look convinced. "Where did you say you were from originally?" "Seattle," Victoria lied smoothly. She'd memorized every detail of her cover story. "I lived there until my husband died. Then I moved to Denver to start fresh." "I'm sorry for your loss," Michael said, though his expression suggested he was more interested in her current availability than her past grief. "How long ago did you lose him?" 2 years. Heart attack. He was only 38. It was sudden." Michael's expression softened slightly. "That must have been terrible. But you seem to be doing well for yourself now." "I've learned to focus on building something positive from the pain," Victoria said. "Sometimes the worst experiences in life can lead to unexpected opportunities." Over the following weeks, Victoria began implementing the second phase of her plan. She used her position at the company to gain access to financial records, employee files, and operational data. What she found was even worse than she had expected. Michael's embezzlement wasn't limited to small amounts skimmed from petty cash or occasional false claims. He had been systematically stealing from Pacific Trust Insurance for over 2 years. He'd been manipulating claims records, approving false settlements, pocketing money that should have gone to legitimate clients. The total amount was close to $200,000. But Victoria also discovered something else that made her blood run cold. Michael wasn't the only one involved. Ashley Morgan, his administrative assistant and girlfriend, had been helping him the entire time. She'd been falsifying documents, creating fake client records, covering his tracks. They'd been working together, stealing from the company while planning to murder Jennifer for her insurance money. Victoria made copies of everything. She stored the evidence in multiple secure locations, both digital and physical. But she wasn't ready to expose Michael yet. First, she wanted to destroy his personal life the same way he tried to destroy hers. Victoria's next move was to drive a wedge between Michael and Ashley. She knew that criminals who worked together often turned on each other when things got difficult. All she had to do was create enough pressure, enough suspicion, enough doubt, and they would destroy each other. Victoria started by having anonymous photographs delivered to Ashley at work. The photos showed Michael having lunch with various women, business associates, clients, completely innocent meetings. But Victoria made sure the photos looked suspicious. She cropped out context, focused on moments of laughter or casual touches, made everything look intimate and secretive. Within a week, Ashley was confronting Michael about his supposed infidelity. Victoria watched from her office as Ashley stormed into Michael's office, her voice raised in anger. "Who is she? Don't lie to me, Michael. I have pictures." "What are you talking about? What pictures?" Victoria couldn't hear everything, but she could see the tension.
"Everyone goes through rough patches," Victoria said sympathetically. "You've been under a lot of stress lately. Maybe you need some time off." "Maybe," Michael said, but he looked worried. "I can't afford to mess up right now.
Not with the company looking to grow. Mr. Harrison is counting on me." Victoria nodded understandingly, even though she was the cause of all his problems. "Is there anything I can do to help? I have experience in operations management. Maybe I could review some of your procedures, see if there's something that could be improved." Michael was desperate enough to accept her offer. Over the next week, Victoria spent time in Michael's office, supposedly helping him organize his workflow and identify problems. In reality, she was gathering more evidence of his embezzlement and learning the intimate details of his daily operations. She also planted more seeds of doubt about Ashley. "I've noticed your assistant seems distracted lately. Is everything okay with her?" "Ashley's been having some personal problems," Michael said defensively. "She's stressed about her future with the company." "That's understandable. It must be difficult for her, working so closely with you. Some people might get the wrong idea about your relationship." Michael's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "Nothing specific," Victoria said quickly. "It's just that office relationships can be complicated. People talk, you know." She could see that Michael was worried. The suggestion that people might be gossiping about their relationship with Ashley was exactly the kind of paranoia she wanted to plant in his mind. That evening, Victoria followed Michael after work. He drove to a bar on the outskirts of Denver, the same bar where he used to meet Ashley for their secret meetings before Jennifer's death. Victoria parked at a distance and watched. Michael sat alone at the bar for over an hour, drinking and checking his phone repeatedly. Ashley never showed up, but Victoria could see that Michael was expecting her. He kept glancing at the door, checking his messages. Their relationship was falling apart exactly as Victoria had planned. The next day, Victoria scheduled a private meeting with Mr. Harrison. "I need to discuss something important with you. I've been reviewing the company's operations over the past few weeks, and I've discovered some concerning irregularities." Mr. Harrison looked surprised. "Irregularities? What kind of irregularities?" Victoria provided him with a detailed report of the problems she'd observed, problems she had created herself, but that also pointed to the real crimes Michael had been committing for years. "I'm seeing missing documentation, incorrect settlement amounts, and communication gaps with clients. Most of this seems to be centered in the claims department." She presented everything professionally, expressing concern rather than making direct accusations. "I'm not suggesting that anyone is deliberately doing anything wrong," she continued, "but if I'm going to increase my investment in this company, I need to be confident that all departments are operating efficiently and ethically." Mr. Harrison looked troubled. "Michael has been one of our most reliable employees for years, but I'll certainly look into this. Thank you for bringing it to my attention." Victoria knew that once Mr. Harrison started investigating, he would find the evidence she'd planted, and more importantly, he would discover the real embezzlement that Michael had been conducting for years. As she left Mr. Harrison's office, Victoria felt a surge of satisfaction. The trap was set, the evidence was gathered, the recordings were secured. Michael Chen's carefully constructed world was about to collapse, and Victoria Cross would be there to watch every moment of his destruction. Mr. Harrison began his investigation into the claims department. Within days, he would discover the truth about Michael's embezzlement. The evidence was overwhelming. Michael's career was about to end in disgrace. But Victoria wasn't satisfied with just destroying his job. She wanted Michael to lose everything: his money, his freedom, his future. And the final confrontation was coming, the moment when Michael would learn that his dead wife had returned from the grave to destroy him.
Mr. Harrison's investigation into the claims department began immediately. He was thorough, methodical, and deeply troubled by what he was finding. Victoria had made sure the evidence was impossible to miss. The altered settlement amounts, the missing documentation, the unauthorized payouts, all of it pointed to systematic theft over a period of years. But what shocked Mr. Harrison most was discovering the real embezzlement underneath Victoria's planted evidence. Michael had been stealing from Pacific Trust Insurance for over 2 years, nearly $200,000 in total. "I can't believe I missed this," Mr. Harrison said to Victoria during a private meeting. "Michael has been like family to me. I trusted him completely." "Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who can hurt us most," Victoria said quietly. "I'm sorry you're going through this." Mr. Harrison looked older suddenly, tired, betrayed. "He needs to confront him, and then I need to decide whether to call the police." "The evidence is clear," Victoria said. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you." The confrontation was scheduled for the following morning. Victoria made sure to be in her office when security escorted Michael to Mr. Harrison's office. She watched through her window as Michael walked past. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. He knew something was wrong. The meeting lasted for 2 hours. Victoria could hear raised voices through the walls, denials, arguments, and eventually, silence. When Michael finally emerged from Mr. Harrison's office, he looked like a broken man. His face was ashen, his shoulders slumped, his confidence completely shattered. Victoria stepped out of her office as he walked past. "Michael, are you okay?" He looked at her with eyes full of desperation and fear. "They're saying I stole money." His voice was shaking. "They have evidence, but I swear I didn't mean I was going to pay it back. I just needed—" He trailed off, realizing he was confessing. "Oh my God," Victoria said, her voice full of false sympathy. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Michael said. "They're giving me until tomorrow to resign, or they'll call the police. My career is over. Everything I've worked for, it's all gone." Victoria watched as Michael gathered his personal belongings from his office. 7 years of work, reduced to a cardboard box. She felt no pity for him, only cold satisfaction that justice was finally being served. But Michael's professional destruction was just the beginning. Victoria had made sure his personal life would crumble at the same time. Ashley's betrayal. Ashley had been watching Michael's downfall with growing alarm. She knew that if Michael went down, he might take her with him. She'd helped him steal from the company. She'd helped him plan Jennifer's murder. If Michael decided to confess everything, Ashley would be facing criminal charges too. Victoria had been counting on Ashley's self-preservation instincts. She'd planted evidence suggesting that Michael was planning to blame everything on Ashley, making her the scapegoat for his crimes. Anonymous tips about Ashley's involvement in the embezzlement had been sent to company management, along with doctored documents that made it look like Ashley was the mastermind behind the scheme. When Ashley realized she was being set up, she did exactly what Victoria had hoped she would do. She turned against Michael completely. "I'm not going down for this," Ashley told Michael during their final confrontation. Victoria had positioned herself where she could overhear and recorded every word. "You're the one who came up with the plan to steal from the company," Ashley continued, her voice shaking with anger. "You're the one who said we needed money for our future, and you're the one who killed your wife for the insurance money." "Keep your voice down," Michael hissed. "Do you want everyone to know?" "I don't care anymore," Ashley shouted. "You used me, Michael. You made me help you steal. You made me help you commit murder. And now you're trying to pin everything on me? Well, I'm not going to let that happen." The recording Victoria had just captured was perfect. Complete confessions to both embezzlement and murder, spoken by the two people who committed the crimes. It was everything she needed to ensure Michael would face justice. Over the next few days, Victoria watched as Michael's world collapsed completely. He was fired from Pacific Trust Insurance, blacklisted from the insurance industry. The insurance company refused to pay out on Jennifer's $2 million policy. They cited suspicious circumstances and ongoing investigations. Michael's savings were frozen pending a criminal investigation. He couldn't find another job. No one would hire him. Ashley disappeared. She cleaned out her apartment and left Denver, probably hoping to avoid criminal charges. But Victoria had made sure the police would find her eventually. She'd provided anonymous tips about Ashley's whereabouts and her involvement in both the embezzlement and the murder plot. Michael was alone, broke, desperate. He'd lost everything he'd gained from killing his wife, and he was facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. Victoria had successfully destroyed him. But she still had one more surprise to deliver. She wanted Michael to know who was responsible for his downfall. She wanted him to realize that his victim had survived, that she had returned, that every moment of his suffering was justice for what he had done. The final revelation. Victoria chose the timing of her revelation carefully. She waited until Michael was at his absolute lowest point, jobless, broke, facing criminal charges. She wanted him to be completely powerless when he learned the truth. The confrontation took place at Michael's apartment, the same apartment where he'd celebrated Jennifer's death with Ashley just months earlier. Victoria had obtained a key through Rebecca's contacts. She let herself in when Michael was out desperately looking for work. She sat in his living room, in the same chair where she'd watched him kiss Ashley the night of her funeral. The symbolism was intentional. When Michael came home, he was carrying a stack of rejection letters from potential employers. His face was gaunt. His clothes were wrinkled. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. The confident, successful man who had pushed her from the helicopter was gone, replaced by a broken shell of a person. "Hello, Michael," Victoria said calmly. Michael jumped, dropping his letters. "What are you doing here? How did you get in?" "Sit down," Victoria said. Her voice was cold, commanding. "I'm calling the police," Michael said, reaching for his phone. "Go ahead," Victoria replied. "I'm sure they'd be very interested in hearing the recording I have, the one where you and Ashley discuss how you murdered your wife." Michael's hand froze. "What are you talking about?" Victoria pressed play on her phone. Michael's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable.
"You're the one who killed your wife for the insurance money. How you planned her death for months. How you loosened her safety harness. How you pushed her out of that helicopter." The color drained from Michael's face. "Where did you get that?" "I was there when you and Ashley had your argument," Victoria said. "I've been there for everything, Michael. Watching you, documenting your crimes, destroying your life piece by piece." "Who are you?" Michael asked, though Victoria could see recognition beginning to dawn in his eyes. Victoria stood up slowly. She moved closer to him. "Look at me, Michael. Look closely. Don't you recognize your own wife?" Michael's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Jennifer is dead. She died in the hospital. I went to her funeral." "You went to an empty casket," Victoria said.
I've been alive this whole time, planning your destruction. But how? The helicopter. You fell. I survived, Victoria said simply. The tree broke my fall. I was hurt, yes, but I lived. And while I was recovering, I realized something important. I didn't want to be Jennifer Chen anymore. She was weak, trusting, naive. She believed in love and marriage and happy endings. But you killed her, Michael. You killed her when you pushed her from that helicopter. Michael was hyperventilating. This can't be happening. You're supposed to be dead. I am dead. Jennifer Chen is dead. I'm Victoria Cross now, a wealthy, powerful woman, powerful enough to destroy you completely. She pulled out a folder and dropped it on the coffee table. This contains all the evidence of your embezzlement, your affair with Ashley, your plan to murder me. It also contains the recording of your confession. I could turn this over to the police right now, and you'd spend the rest of your life in prison. Michael stared at the folder. His hands were shaking. What do you want? I want you to understand what you've lost, Victoria said. You killed your wife for $2 million in insurance money, money you'll never see. You threw away a marriage with a woman who loved you, who supported you, who worked extra shifts to pay for your education. You destroyed your career, your reputation, your future. And for what? A secretary who ran away the moment things got difficult? Jennifer, please. My name is Victoria. Jennifer Chen died in that helicopter. You made sure of that. Michael broke down completely, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to happen. Ashley, she pushed me to do it. She said we'd never be happy unless I was dead. Yes, I heard that part of your confession too. Michael looked up at her with desperate, pleading eyes. Please don't turn me in. I'll do anything. I'll give you everything I have. Victoria laughed, a cold, bitter sound. You don't have anything, Michael. That's the point. I've already taken everything from you. Your job, your money, your girlfriend, your future. There's nothing left. Then why are you here? Why tell me all this? Because I wanted you to know. I wanted you to understand that your victim didn't just disappear. She came back and she destroyed you completely. Every moment of suffering you've experienced in the past few months, that was justice. Victoria walked to the window. She looked out at the city where she'd built her new life. I'm going to give you a choice, Michael. I can turn this evidence over to the police right now, and you'll spend the next 20 years in prison for embezzlement and attempted murder. Or what? Michael asked desperately. Or you can disappear. Leave Denver tonight. Never come back. Change your name. Start over somewhere else. Live the rest of your life looking over your shoulder, wondering if today is the day I decide to turn you in. Michael stared in disbelief. You'd let me go? I'm not letting you go, Victoria said. I'm giving you the same choice you gave me when you pushed me from that helicopter. You can take your chances with gravity, or you can fight to survive. The difference is, I'm not trying to kill you. I'm just making sure you live with the consequences of what you did. Michael nodded frantically. Yes, okay. I'll leave. I'll disappear.
You'll never see me again." "Good," Victoria said, "because if I ever see you again, if you ever try to contact me or anyone from your old life, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life in prison. And prison is not kind to men who try to murder their wives." She moved toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Michael, the insurance company has been asking questions about my death. They're suspicious about the circumstances. If they ever find out I'm alive, they'll want to know why I faked my death. And I'll have to tell them the truth about what really happened in that helicopter." The threat was clear. If Michael ever tried to expose her, she would expose him right back. And her story, that she had faked her death to escape an abusive husband who had tried to kill her, would be much more sympathetic than his. Victoria left Michael's apartment for the last time. She knew she would never see him again. He would disappear, probably change his name, spend the rest of his life in fear. It wasn't the same as prison, but it was better than he deserved. The next morning, Victoria submitted a carefully edited report to the police. The report contained all the evidence of Michael's embezzlement, but it made no mention of the murder plot or her true identity. She told them that Michael Chen had fled town, leaving behind evidence of his financial crimes. She also submitted a separate report to the insurance company, detailing Michael's embezzlement and suggesting they investigate the circumstances of his wife's death more thoroughly. She knew that eventually they would discover the truth about the helicopter incident, but by then, Michael would be long gone, and Victoria Cross would be untouchable. Victoria had successfully destroyed Michael Chen, but her revenge wasn't complete. She had one more phase of her plan to execute, building a new life that would be everything Jennifer Chen's life had never been. Michael was gone, his career destroyed, his life ruined. Justice had been served, but Victoria's transformation wasn't finished. She was about to build something extraordinary from the ashes of Jennifer Chen's death, an empire, a legacy, a life of power and purpose. And she would do it by being smarter, stronger, and more determined than anyone who had tried to destroy her. This is the story of how a victim became a victor, how a fall from a helicopter became the beginning of something extraordinary.
6 months after Michael's disappearance, Victoria Cross was a completely different person. The scared woman who had fallen from a helicopter was gone forever. In her place stood a powerful businesswoman who commanded respect in every room she entered. Victoria had used her 30% stake in Pacific Trust Insurance as a foundation to build something much bigger. When Mr. Harrison decided to retire early, citing the stress and betrayal of Michael's crimes, Victoria purchased the remaining 70% of the company. She now owned Pacific Trust Insurance entirely. But that was just the beginning. Victoria used her success at Pacific Trust as leverage to secure loans for other ventures. She purchased a chain of urgent care medical clinics across Colorado. She invested in real estate developments in Denver and Boulder. She even bought a small community hospital that was struggling financially. Everything she touched seemed to thrive. Her business instincts, honed through years of working as a nurse and studying business at night school, were sharper than anyone expected. She understood healthcare, she understood insurance, she understood people, and she knew how to build value. The transformation wasn't just professional. Victoria had become beautiful in a way that Jennifer never had been. Not just physically, though the expensive clothes and professional styling certainly helped,
but with the confidence and power that came from controlling her own destiny. She wore tailored business suits that cost more than Jennifer used to make in a month. She drove a Tesla Model S. She lived in a luxury penthouse with panoramic views of the Rocky Mountains. But the most satisfying part of her transformation was the respect she commanded. People listened when she spoke. They sought her advice. They wanted her approval. She was no longer the woman who had been pushed around and taken advantage of. She was the woman who did the pushing now. Victoria was reviewing acquisition reports in her corner office when her assistant knocked. "Miss Cross, there's a detective here to see you. She says it's about a case she's investigating." Victoria's heart rate increased slightly, but she kept her expression calm. "Send her in." The woman who entered was in her early 50s, well-dressed, with sharp eyes and a confident bearing. She introduced herself as Detective Linda Martinez from the Denver Police Department. "Miss Cross, I'm investigating a case involving a man named Michael Chen. I believe you knew him through your business dealings." "The name sounds familiar," said Victoria carefully. "He worked for Pacific Trust Insurance before I acquired the company, didn't he?" "That's right," Detective Martinez said. "He disappeared about 6 months ago, just before charges were filed against him for embezzlement. We've been tracking his movements, trying to locate him." "I'm afraid I can't help you," said Victoria. "I only dealt with him briefly during my acquisition of the company. He was gone before I really got to know him." Detective Martinez nodded, but her eyes remained sharp and observant. "The interesting thing is," Detective Martinez continued, "is we've found evidence that someone was systematically sabotaging his work in the weeks before his disappearance. Computer records were altered, files were changed. It was very sophisticated." Victoria maintained her composure. "Corporate sabotage is a serious crime. Have you identified who was responsible?" "Not yet," Detective Martinez said. "We're still investigating, but whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing." She paused, then continued. "There's something else. We've been investigating Michael Chen's background, and we discovered he was married to a woman named Jennifer Chen. She died in a helicopter accident about a year ago." Victoria's blood ran cold, but she forced herself to remain calm. "That's terrible," she said. "Losing a spouse is always tragic." "The insurance company has been investigating that accident. They found some irregularities in the claim. They're starting to believe Michael may have been involved in his wife's death." "That's horrible," said Victoria. "Do you think he killed her?" "We're starting to think so," Detective Martinez replied. "But here's the interesting part. We can't find Jennifer Chen's body." Victoria's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. "What does that mean?" "It means either Michael moved the body to hide evidence, or Jennifer Chen is actually not dead, and if she's not dead, then she's the most likely person to have orchestrated Michael's downfall." The two women stared at each other for a long moment. Victoria could see that Detective Martinez suspected the truth, but she also knew the detective had no proof. "That's a fascinating theory," Victoria said finally, "but I'm not sure how it relates to me." "Maybe it doesn't," Detective Martinez said, standing up. "But I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other again, Miss Cross. I'm good at solving puzzles, and this one is very interesting." After the detective left, Victoria sat quietly in her office. She had always known that someday someone might figure out the truth about her identity, but proving it would be nearly impossible. Victoria Cross had a completely fabricated but legally documented history. Social security number, driver's license, bank accounts, tax returns, a business empire. Jennifer Chen, on the other hand, was officially dead. Even if Detective Martinez suspected the truth, proving that Victoria and Jennifer were the same person would be extremely difficult, and more importantly, Victoria had committed no crimes. She had faked her death to escape an abusive husband who had tried to murder her. She had used legal business tactics to expose his embezzlement. Even if the truth came out, Public sympathy would be on her side. Victoria's phone rang. It was Rebecca. "You need to see this," Rebecca said. "Turn on the news." Victoria grabbed the remote and switched on the TV in her office. The breaking news headline made her freeze. Former insurance executive arrested in Oregon for fraud and attempted murder. Michael's face filled the screen, handcuffed, being led into a police station. According to the news report, Michael Chen had been found living under a fake name in a small town in Oregon. He'd been working at a gas station and living in a trailer park, but apparently he hadn't been able to resist committing new crimes. He'd tried to file a fraudulent insurance claim using his false identity, and when investigators started looking into his background, they discovered who he really was. Michael Chen is being extradited to Colorado to face charges of embezzlement, insurance fraud, and attempted murder, the news anchor said. He's been on the run for 6 months following allegations of stealing nearly $200,000 from his former employer. Victoria watched as Michael was loaded into a police car. He looked broken, defeated, nothing like the confident man who had pushed her from that helicopter. The news report continued. Chen's former girlfriend, Ashley Morgan, has also been arrested. She's cooperating with investigators and has provided testimony about Chen's alleged crimes, including claims that he murdered his wife by pushing her from a helicopter and staging it like an accident. Victoria allowed herself a small smile. Michael and Ashley had turned on each other just as she had predicted they would.
They were both going to prison. Justice was finally being served. Later that day, Victoria called a press conference. She announced the creation of a new charitable foundation, the Jennifer Chen Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors. This foundation is dedicated to helping women escape dangerous relationships, Victoria told the gathered reporters. It will provide resources, shelter, legal support, and financial assistance to women in situations similar to what Jennifer Chen faced. Jennifer Chen was an emergency room nurse who died tragically last year, but her legacy will live on through this foundation. We'll help women who are trapped in abusive marriages, women who need a chance to start over, women who deserve justice. The foundation would be funded by Victoria's personal wealth and supported by her business empire. It was her way of honoring the woman she had been while celebrating the woman she had become. The press conference was covered extensively. Victoria's story, that she was a successful businesswoman honoring the memory of a colleague who had died tragically, resonated with people. Donations poured in from all over the country. Within months, the foundation had helped dozens of women escape dangerous situations. It had become Victoria's greatest achievement, not because it made money, but because it saved lives. 5 years after the helicopter incident, Victoria Cross was featured on the cover of Forbes magazine. The headline read, "From Tragedy to Triumph: How Victoria Cross Built a Business Empire." The article detailed her incredible rise from a widow investing in insurance to a business titan with an empire worth over $50 million. Her holdings included Pacific Trust Insurance, now expanded to 5 states, a network of urgent care clinics serving communities across Colorado and Wyoming, a hospital system providing affordable health care to underserved populations, real estate developments in 3 states, technology investments in healthcare startups. She employed over 2,000 people. She was worth an estimated $50 million, and she was still growing. The article praised her business acumen, her strategic vision, and her commitment to giving back through the Jennifer Chen Foundation. But it made no mention of her previous identity. As far as the world knew, Victoria Cross was exactly who she claimed to be, a successful investor who'd built something extraordinary. Meanwhile, Michael Chen was serving a life sentence in a Colorado state prison. He'd been convicted on all charges: embezzlement, insurance fraud, and attempted murder. The jury had taken less than 4 hours to reach a guilty verdict. Ashley Morgan was serving 15 years as an accomplice. They were both exactly where they belonged. On the 10th anniversary of her death, Victoria stood in the cemetery where Jennifer Chen was supposedly buried. The headstone was real. It marked the death of the woman she had been. Jennifer Chen, beloved wife, nurse, friend, 1987 to 2015. Gone but never forgotten. Fresh flowers had been placed there recently, probably by some of Jennifer's former colleagues from the hospital who still remembered her kindness. Victoria placed her own flowers on the grave. White roses, Jennifer's favorite. "Goodbye," she whispered. "You deserved better than what Michael gave you, but your death gave birth to something he never expected." She stood there for a long moment, reflecting on the journey. Jennifer Chen had been a good person, loving, trusting, generous to a fault. She had deserved a husband who honored her sacrifices and loved her faithfully. Instead, she got Michael Chen, a man who saw her as nothing more than a $2 million payday. But her death, or rather her transformation, had created something extraordinary. Victoria Cross was everything Jennifer Chen had never been allowed to be. Powerful, independent, in control of her own destiny. She had built an empire from the ashes of her former life. She had helped hundreds of women escape situations similar to her own. She had achieved success beyond anything she could have imagined as Jennifer. As Victoria walked away from the cemetery, she thought about legacy. What would she be remembered for? Not as the woman who fell from a helicopter, not as the victim of her husband's greed, but as the woman who rose from that fall and built something extraordinary. A business empire that provided jobs and services to thousands of people. A foundation that saved lives and gave women a second chance. A life lived on her own terms, with no one controlling her or limiting her potential. That evening, Victoria stood on the balcony of her penthouse apartment. The sun was setting over the Rocky Mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She thought about the scared woman who had plummeted toward the earth 5 years ago. That woman thought she was dying. She thought her story was ending, but she was wrong. The fall from the helicopter wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a transformation, a rebirth, a second chance. Jennifer Chen had died that day, but Victoria Cross had been born, and she had done more than just survive. She had thrived. She had achieved success, respect, and most importantly, freedom. Victoria raised a glass of wine to the sunset, to second chances, to transformation, to the power of rising from the ashes. Michael Chen tried to end her life for money, but instead, he gave her something much more valuable. He gave her the motivation to become someone extraordinary, someone who would never be a victim again, someone who would spend the rest of her life helping other women find their own power. Victoria's phone rang. It was Margaret Torres, her business mentor. "Victoria, I just wanted to congratulate you on the Forbes cover. You've come so far in such a short time. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Margaret. I couldn't have done it without your guidance. You had the drive and intelligence. I just gave you some tools. You did the hard work yourself." After the call ended, Victoria smiled. She had surrounded herself with good people, honest people, people who valued integrity and hard work, the opposite of Michael and Ashley. Her empire was built on a foundation of ethics and genuine care for employees and clients. It was everything Michael's life had never been. Victoria looked out at the city one more time. Tomorrow, she would wake up and continue building her empire. She would help more women through her foundation. She would create more jobs through her businesses.
She would make a difference in the world. But tonight, she would simply enjoy the view and remember how far she'd come. The woman who had fallen from a helicopter had done more than survive. She had transformed tragedy to triumph. She had turned betrayal into motivation, and she had taken the worst thing that ever happened to her and used it to build something extraordinary. Jennifer Chen was gone, but Victoria Cross was unstoppable, and she was just getting started.
Sometimes, the worst moments of our lives don't destroy us. They reveal who we're truly capable of becoming. Jennifer Chen fell from a helicopter, but Victoria Cross rose from that fall stronger than anyone imagined possible. She didn't just get revenge, she built a legacy. She didn't just survive, she thrived. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction, it's living well. It's becoming more successful, more powerful, and more fulfilled than the people who tried to bring you down. Victoria Cross proved that some falls don't end your story, they start a new chapter. And sometimes that new chapter is better than anything that came before.